Well, welcome into episode 36 of the Masters in Coaching podcast here on iHeartRadio, YouTube, or wherever you are watching, and whatever platform you are watching or listening on. We thank you for being a part of this week's episode. We thank you for downloading and listening and watching all of our past episodes. We hope you're enjoying them. So excited about our next guest. He is a coach. He is a CEO. He's got his master's from Concordia University Irvine. He is Dusty Buell, and he joins us now. Episode 36 of the Masters in Coaching podcast. Dusty, how you doing?
I'm doing great. This just keeps getting better. I've been watching these episodes and these coaches, and you can pull something from everybody for sure.
Absolutely. That's why we love doing it. And first off, it's fun talking to coaches and teachers and administrators, athletic directors, people who have gone through the program. People are going through the program because it's a direct fit to what they're doing as far as their job is. But you're different, and I love this. You're a coach for high school soccer, but also you're a CEO. You work in the private sector, so you've kind of juggling both that. Tell us a little bit about your background and how you got to where you are right now, being a CEO of Sunlight Children's Services and also a high school soccer coach.
Yeah, it's kind of a wild mixture, but all of it there's a common thread that goes through everything, and it is all about leadership and leading people. I have, I think I was born with a servant's heart, and I've been serving children in some capacity my entire adult career, so spanning over 15 years. And all of that has led me to being the CEO of Sunlight Children's Services, where we get children that have been abused or neglected. They show up at our front door. They have that raw trauma when they walk through that door, and it is our job to make sure they're safe, make sure that while the investigation is going on to what got them there, they're going to be safe until they can go on safely to the next placement, wherever that might be. So it's never the same day. It's always heartbreaking. My staff are in tears a lot. We're all in tears a lot. The stuff that happens to these children behind closed doors is almost too much to process and handle. And so trying to weave your way through that grief and trauma with this child before in this short period that we have them it's a difficult task.
How did you get involved with them first off? Because I know you got kind of a PR communications background, a degree in that, dabbled in that, but also a soccer coach. And what led you down those two different roads?
Sure. So, like I said, my whole life is about serving others. And I started my career in serving children in foster care in a little bit different capacity in that PR background. Then I was a lobbyist at our state capitol, where I went to look at changing the laws and look at what we can do to this system to make it better for these children in foster care. That was kind of that light bulb moment that, it's going to take a lot more. And I need to pursue a passion into trying to figure out ways to better serve and better help children in some capacity. So when I left there, I went and I was on the executive leadership team at a organization that served children with severe autism and developmental disabilities. And we were an international nonprofit. We had children from all over the United States and beyond. And it was a great experience to be around the population, to find their abilities instead of always looking at their disabilities and celebrating those little wins. And so you can see where that connection is finding those little wins to celebrate along the way, to make sure that they are engaged and giving the best of themselves, which is exactly what a coach is going to be doing. So when I left there and took over as a CEO of Sunlight Children's Services, it was kind of going back to my roots. It was going back to these kids that I served 15 years ago, and just kind of figuring out the best way and what they need. And so these past 2 years throughout this pandemic, when these children have been isolated and locked away, and they have not been going to church or not been going to school or not been seeing family, that is the exact ingredient of what an abuser wants. He wants to have these children locked away and isolated so they can't see the bruises, they can't see the broken arms, they can't hear their cries, they can't see it in their face. And when you don't have children in school, and teachers are our biggest referral source because they see these kids and they know these kids and they are a blessing to these kids beyond measure. What we're seeing now is the kids that are coming out that we're seeing are much, much more severe, have been locked away in their own isolated hell with their abuser for so long. And so it is just, it's getting harder and harder to do the job because of what we're seeing.
Dusty Buell is our guest. He is the CEO of Sunlight Children's Services, also the soccer coach at Augusta High School, just outside of Wichita, Kansas, here on the Masters in Coaching podcast. What you do in the private sector, now coaching as well, and the leadership you have overseeing a soccer program. How did you get involved in coaching high school soccer?
Well, I came back home. In 2015, we were looking for a coach at my alumni at Augusta High School. And the gentleman that was there before had served there for many, many years, kind of kept this program together. It was a fragile program at times, but he laid a foundation for me to come in and take it over. And it was always a goal to give back to my community, give back to these kids. I was big into coaching our club teams that were the local clubs. And so it just was that natural fit for me to step into this role. Luckily, I had a boss and an organization that allowed me to do that. And I've had that throughout my career and around my coaching career. So back in 2015, when I took over this program, a little backstory, this program started in 1994. We were basically kind of the doormat for many, many years. We basically just existed and of mediocrity. We won a regional championship in 2006 under his guidance, but then we lost in the quarterfinals. So when I came in, this program had won one regional championship since 1994. And so now we're talking, this year is our 27th year, and we're finally getting the respect that I feel these kids deserve. And I love seeing it and running through this journey with these kids. And it's just so unexpected that Augusta High School in Augusta, Kansas are having these major outcomes and major wins and putting us on the map.
Do you see or feel any similarities from I'll call it your day job as the CEO and then coaching high school kids? Certainly different worlds that we're talking about, but leadership is leadership no matter what you're talking about, whether it's private or whether it's education or whatever you're doing. Being a leader is always being a leader. Do you find any similarities between the two, being that coach and being that CEO?
I think that there's similarities. There is so many similarities, and it's all built on a foundation of trust and love. It is, my employees know it, my team knows it, my assistant coach knows it, the kids that come in that receive our services know it, that every single one's going to be treated with the utmost dignity and respect. There is going to be mutual respect in everything that we do. And without that foundation of trust and love that you can build with one another, then I think you're going to have a hard time growing, whether it is in a private sector or as a team. And so that's the one thing that we continue to communicate. And it's that communication that drives the process. It's communication, it's values, it's the transformation that we're looking at from these kids and from my staff. But it is that mutual respect along the way.
For those listening and watching, they're probably wondering, well, you're a CEO in the private sector, doing great, helping kids out in the community. You're also a high school soccer coach at your alumni and at your old high school and building that program up. What made you, Dusty, decide, okay, I need to get my master's degree. I need to go and go to Concordia University Irvine, and I got to get this master's degree. At this point in your life, why? Did you need it?
Probably need is kind of a word to throw out there. Probably not to increase where I'm going to be in my day job, but I needed it because these kids needed it from me. Going in there and playing and then coming back and coaching, it's different. You can be the best player in the world, but it doesn't mean you're going to be the best coach. And when I made the decision to go back to Concordia, it was in 2016, and it was because of my hatred for losing. And the bottom line is that I do not like to lose, and I don't like seeing my kids' faces when they lose and when they show up and know that we're going to get beat. It takes the fun and the engagement and everything out of what we're trying to build as a soccer program. So when I made that decision, I made it based on the fact that I need to give more to these kids. And from a coaching perspective, it's the best choice I've made in my life, because you could see the immediate results once I finished that program and started weaving some of these teachings and some of these things into my program.
What are one or two things that you're kind of talking about in those things you learn to translation into your coaching?
I think it is one of the major things that I bring to my program is that we stop focusing on the outcome. Started focusing on the process and what gets us there. And sometimes that gets lost. The immediacy, that gratitude of that win feels very good at that moment. But that continuation of wins and seeing a whole culture and a whole program lead in a positive way, it far outweighs that just one win that you can get with your team. And so instead of focusing on that outcome, it was focusing on building that foundation, building it within the culture, building it within every single one of those kids, and basically instilling all of that knowledge and power and empowering those seniors and juniors, and making sure these freshmen and sophomores have somebody to look for and look up to and find out how this program is going to be.
How did that go, though, when you started that transition for the core of your program, and even, you can say kind of a change of philosophy for yourself? How did that go over with the players?
It was hard. It was very hard, because they've never seen the demands that I was giving them. They didn't understand why we were doing certain things, even though we have this set out for them and we are instilling this vision and this focus within them. They just don't understand it at first. And but I had some very strong buy-in from particular people that everybody on the team trusted. And those were the ones I went to and I said, you've got to help me with this. And, and it's those that it may have not have gave that immediate impact to, but they gave of themselves for this program to be better in the long run. And those kids that started playing as freshmen in 2016, we were 3-13 in our first season. And by the time they were seniors, we had won a regional championship. We were, I believe, 16-7 by the end of the season. So they got to walk with me through this whole thing, and they were kind of those guiding principles that got to start here, ended here at a very high point, and now it's everybody behind them was looking to them at, this is who I want to be and what I want out of this program.
Yeah, establishing that base, whatever program you're taking over or business you're taking over, is so hard. And as you mentioned, you need 1, 2, 3, however many people to be that core to buy in and really help everybody else rally around that and see the growth of, if it's a company or a program or a athletics program, no doubt about it. Dusty, talk about your philosophy. You put together the core values for your soccer program. And, John Wooden's got the pyramid of success, but you got your core value system. It's laid out perfectly. Talk a little bit about that and how you put it together and formulated it.
So our core values for Augusta are leadership, excellence, possibility, celebration, and transformation. And those core values are weave into every single thing that we do. And it's one thing to go in and say, these are our values and give those to those kids, but it is how do you explain these values in a way that they can understand it, and then they can go out and display these values? I think you're doing a big disservice by saying our core value is in leadership and then letting them figure out what that leadership means to them. So when we talk about our core values, it is our core value in leadership is guiding and motivating with a compelling vision. And so that goes back to this. Our vision is much more than what we're going to do on the field. It is who we are as people. It is instilling that leadership within them. It is building trust that achieves a lasting impact. And that's what our leadership is. It's building that trust, and we will achieve lasting impact within these kids. And that is my personal mission and purpose, is to give of myself to them. And I know that hundreds and thousands of athletes are going to take a piece of me and my heart with them when they leave this program and go out and do whatever they're going to do to be successful human beings. So it's important. We value excellence in creating a culture of commitment, responsibility, and accountability. This is a hard one for high school boys. Commitment and responsibility, and making sure that if they're sick, they're going to call or text or tell me that they're sick and not rely on their parents to do it. It is that if they're not going to be at practice, I need to know about it. Let's start building them and giving them some responsibility on their own, so they can be coached. And we value possibility and refusing to accept anything but their best. And that possibility goes a long way, because anything's possible with these kids, but they have to be willing to give up some of their personal time, some of their friendships, some of their girlfriends, whatever that is, in order to help us be better. We value celebration. We value celebration because we're going to celebrate as a team any win that we have, sure. But we're not do it just in the locker room. We're going to bring in our community and help our community celebrate with us for these kids and their accomplishments. And these last 2 years, when we went to state this past year, we had so many community members step up and give donations so these kids can have meals and hotels and everything else, because they wanted to be a part of this. We've built this thing, and we wanted them to celebrate with us. It's the same thing as when soccer doesn't have a very good reputation for having fans at our games or student sections. And this year something clicked and it was different. And we had brought in our student section, and it was massive for us that we had home playoff games and we had our student section full. So after our game, it wasn't just us going and holding up a trophy and taking our picture. It was all of us. It was a true family event with everybody at our school that wanted to be a part of this. So that celebration is very important in making sure these kids understand that it's not just me. It is a community rallying behind them and wanting them to succeed. And then our final value is transformation. And we value transformation in you're not going to be who you are when you walk in here as a freshman, when you leave here as a senior. We are going to take you and develop you, and we are going to put you in the best chance to succeed. Sometimes that is being on junior varsity for several years to find the skills and to understand the tactics and the soccer IQ that you're going to need to have. But when you leave here, you're going to take more than just soccer with you. We're going to transform you as a person. We're going to be here for the good times, but we're especially going to be here for the bad times. And if things are happening outside of soccer that you need, then we're going to be here for that too.
The value system that you set up and the foundation you set up for this program, how did it go during COVID? I mean, here in California, it's a lot different than how COVID affected schools and kids around the country. For you guys there in the Wichita, Kansas area, in the shutdowns, because everybody was shut down for a period of time. But for you as a coach, how did it affect you and what you've established? Did it just keep going through COVID? Did you have some bumps during COVID? How did that 18-month to 2-year period work with you as far as everything you had established the prior 3 years?
Yeah, it was a struggle. Starting back in 2019 in the spring, luckily our season is in the fall here in Kansas. So we had already had our season. But when I saw my seniors lose their spring sports, something that I push them to do is to play multiple sports. And to be coached by different coaches and hear different philosophies. That's very important to me. And so them not having that spring season, it was hard on everybody, including me, that I didn't get to go watch them and support them in doing something. And they didn't really understand it, that this season was just pulled away from them. And they didn't realize their winter sport was the last time they're ever going to be a high school athlete. So it was very hard in 2019. In 2020, coming back, there was just so many changes and so many routine changes, and the hand sanitizers and the masks and everything that we had to do that was different, that we had to just adjust on the fly every time. When a team had COVID and couldn't play us, we just had to adjust our schedules. So there was never anything that was consistent in all of 2020, and it made it very hard. I think the one thing that we could take out of it is that we were doing it together, and we spend so much time together when we're in a season. And it was us. It was, if one of us got COVID, none of us played. And so I think it was a bigger responsibility onto these kids to make these decisions outside of soccer, outside of practice, to make that this family and this team can compete on the field. And so we kept looking back at that 2019 season that we lost, and we said, we're going to be here and we're going to do this. We're going to do it together, and we're going to do it the right way. It didn't make it easy by any means. And then when playoffs came around in 2020, which we weren't even guaranteed a postseason at that point, they adjusted everything. So we didn't go we would have been the number one seed in the state. They didn't go by seedings. Instead, they put us in pods. And so I think in that 2020 year, our seniors had to go up against some teams that we normally wouldn't have had to go up against until we made it to state. So that was a tough one. They won the regional championship in 2019. 2020 looked completely different, and we got knocked out in the regional championship. And so I think it just left a lot to be desired from our juniors and our sophomores. And for our seniors, it was just a tough break for them, but they got to play, and that was the thing. If we got to play games, we were grateful. If we got to play postseason games, we were grateful. And just thinking back in 2015, we would have been playing the number 1 or 2 seed, and we would have been traveling a long way to play them. So it was just it's a different thing whenever you have expectations on you and playing with expectations, rather than when you're playing house money and you're the underdog coming up.
Believe me, I had that conversation with my junior daughter who plays lacrosse, and last year they went on a run and won here the CIF championship in Southern California. And now, expectations were low, second year program, and now here they are in year 3, and all the girls think they're just going to win another championship, and they go into every game like, we're better than you. And it's a mindset and a philosophy that I've had to deal with her, and trying to, as a leader on her team, to try to transition. It's interesting. It's been a difficult process the last few weeks. But before we wrap things up, Dusty, the Concordia program, obviously you're in Kansas, so I assume you did most of it online and went through this program. And you talked about all the benefits, and you talked about what you took from it into coaching, into being a CEO. For those watching, those listening right now, what would you say to encourage them to do that? Not only teachers or coaches or administrators or athletic directors, but people in the private sector that are CEOs or presidents or general managers that are looking to become better leaders.
I think the best thing I can say is that there's never going to be a good time to take that step to go back to school. I think that if I gave myself this advice when I was going through school, is to do this and continue school, go get your master's while you're still in school, while you have less responsibility. I'm sitting here with a family, with 3 children, being the CEO of an organization, and obviously it wasn't the right time, but it's never going to be the right time. And it's those short-term sacrifices that I made for these long-term gains. And I feel that this program is tremendous for coaches or athletic directors or anybody that wants to have their hand in sports when they leave. But it's also good for those that need to find that leadership mentality, to take that deep introspective look within themselves and find out who you want to be and who you truly are. And when I was coaching, It took me one class into this program to figure out that the person that I'm talking about to my professor, of who I want to be and who I think is best for this program, was not the same person that was taking over this program. And so it made me think about who I was as a person and who I was as a coach. It made me be stronger in my advocacy for these boys, and it made me a stronger and more passionate student within the MCAA program, because I knew that if I gave all of myself to this program and took the time that I needed and studied and read and really listened and took the pieces of information that I was getting from my professors, then it didn't matter what sport I was coaching, or it didn't matter what team I was leading, that I could take a piece of every single one of them. And I had this rare opportunity to take this program and then take it and put it in a real life perspective. And that's what college is supposed to be. You give me the knowledge that I can immediately implement in the real world. And I feel that that's exactly what it did.
Well, Dusty, we appreciate the time. Continued success with what you're doing with Sunlight Children's Services. Obviously, you got the soccer program at Augusta High School going in a great direction, and so much success there. And we thank you for your time. Thank you for sharing your story. Thank you for talking about your experience in the master's program and how it's helped you in your private life as a CEO and also as a high school soccer coach. I think that's a great example and a great learning lesson for a lot of people who are watching and listening right now. So thank you so much. We really appreciate it.
All right. Thank you, Tim.